Welcome back. In our prior lessons, we explored a variety of surfaces that we see in fruits, vegetables, furniture, and much more. Now we'll look at metallic surfaces such as silver and brass. These can be shiny or dull and are often found in still life compositions as plates, pitchers, and unusual accent pieces. However, metallic surfaces are not limited to still life arrangements. We see them as chrome on cars and motorcycles, as picture frames and eyeglass rims, and as common household items such as silverware and appliances. It's helpful to understand these basic techniques when creating believable metallic objects. In this lesson, we'll layer extreme values to create silver. We'll employ a warmer palette to depict brass, and heighten the realism of your metallic textures by incorporating details. Creating realistic silver metal usually involves layering extreme values from our darkest darks to the brightest highlights. The cool gray palette of pencils is often used, and in the Prismacolor line they're called exactly that, cool gray. For example, I'll be using 50% cool gray, sometimes I use 10%, sometimes I use 70%. But in this demo I'll be using 50% cool gray and the white and the black pencils, which anchor both ends of the palette. You can see the extreme values in high contrast with this silver tea set. I start my compositions by first blocking in the dark sections, which is usually done with black. Let me show you an easy way to identify the three main values in metallic surfaces. Take your photo reference, put it about 6 inches in front of you, and squint. That's all, just squint. You're going to see very clearly your darks, your highlights, and your midtones. And so take your black pencil and start blocking in your darks. That will give you sort of like a puzzle, a place, a reference point to begin developing your picture. I'm going to demonstrate how I get those values on paper with this silver teapot handle. We have some blacks here. All I've put in first is blacks, and I'm going to start right here at the very top, adding a little bit more black. And this is just my Prismacolor black, and I'm using 3 pressure, handwriting pressure. Just developing this. I want you to see this, that I'm just developing this. My strokes, even though it would be very easy to go slash, slash, straight down, I don't want you to do that because this is a sleek surface. I want tiny, tight little strokes so that it will be very, very smooth. So they're small, they're circular or elliptical, and they're overlapping each other. I'm not at the point where I'm burnishing yet though. I'm just installing the color. Okay, so I'm doing that over here in the middle section, going a little quickly. I want you to follow me here, and sliding some color down here as well. So now we've established the darkest darks with our black pencil. I'm going to put in the midtones now with my 50% cool gray. Interestingly, Prismacolor calls this cool gray, and sometimes on my pencils I've seen it labeled cold gray. So don't be confused if you see that. Starting at the lower left, I'm adding some mid-tone color down on this handle and bringing it up. Elliptical strokes again, sliding it up the outline of the edge here and into the black. On the right hand side, I'm doing the same thing. I want to preserve the highlight right there, so I'm very careful to go around that. And as I do this, I'm actually outlining this highlight. I'll tighten it up a little bit by bringing the midtone up. There we go. I see up here at the top of the handle that we have some nice gray, middle gray here. So I'll bring that in. And it is a temptation just to do straight vertical strokes, but we don't want to do that. Fight that temptation. Overlapping strokes right down and in that section above that streaky little highlight. Frequently brush away your pencil debris because you want to keep your paper as clean as possible. Okay, taking it down on the other side of the highlight, my 50% cool gray is establishing some nice middle value here. And I'm also going to sweep it over this section right here on the right hand side of the middle black area. Lightening my pressure as I go up to the top because I know that I want that to be whiter than down here. So now what you see is all 3 values. We've got the blacks, We've got the midtones of the gray, and we've got the extreme highlights that we're going to be very careful to preserve. Now it's time to add some pressure and to burnish. I'm taking my black pencil, starting at the top, and with very extreme pressure, shouting pressure, small elliptical strokes, I am burnishing and I'm finishing this little area. Very small. This will give me the blackest black. Now let's just say that you're working on something and this isn't black enough for you. And it may not be, because when you have browns surrounding it or other colors, it may not read as black as you need it to be. And that's okay, because there's another pencil that you're going to love. It is called the Aquarellable Stabilo Black Pencil. And it's fabulous. It's made of a graphite substance that just turns it into almost like a black chalky texture and appearance. And more than once, it's saved the day for me when I've needed to really get some depth in my blacks. So I want you to remember that as a reference, because it's a wonderful pencil. Stabilo also makes a white pencil that is that chalky consistency that's a wonderful pencil. If your Prismacolor white is not cutting it for you, and if your Faber-Castell white is not laying down color or white as much as you want it to. Okay, so I'm back to the Prismacolor, because I'm keeping it consistent with the wax, and I'm finishing the top of this handle. Blending it into the midtones. We have this stripe here, burnishing that. 5 pressure, and doing that down the top of the handle as well. This is the burnishing of the blacks, and then we'll stretch the grays into the blacks and ultimately blend it all together with the white. Now I'm coloring in this deep black section using the same technique. 5 pressure, small strokes, overlapping. I think it's good to go rather slowly. Don't be in a hurry. You may be tempted to be in a hurry, but I don't recommend that, because then it'll just look sloppy. Especially with metallic textures, you've got an awful lot of little pieces that need to look realistic. One more area to go to burnish the blacks. It's on the far right side here. You know, I was teaching on a cruise recently and teaching the class the burnishing technique, and one gentleman who's a very good artist said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure, what's that?" And he said, "You're always talking about this painterly technique. Well, why the heck don't you just learn how to paint?" Which I thought was pretty funny, because why don't I learn how to paint? But those of you who use colored pencils, you know that they're fabulous, they're affordable, you can take them anywhere, and you can create some gorgeous stuff with them. Okay, so now I have this black down. I'm going to develop the grays just a little bit more, put a little wax down. And now, taking that white pencil, my Prismacolor Premier pencil, and I'm going to blend the black into the white, the midtones into the white, and start making it come alive. Here we go. Stretching the black into the highlight. The wax is pretty warm now. It's working with me, it's not working against me. Sometimes when you first start out and your pencils are cold, it takes a little while for them to cooperate. Okay, taking the midtone here, this was the 50% cool gray, using my rounded elliptical strokes, burnishing, bringing it right on up the handle. Okay, so a little breakage, but no worries, we just keep moving on. When your point breaks, it's almost a relief to me, because now we have an angled, dull edge that's going to be perfect for burnishing, and it won't break again. Stretching it into the highlight. Now I would probably take some more time to develop this, but you get the point right here. You see what I'm trying to do is to create that believable shine with an extreme highlight, which is basically leaving the middle of the paper white and bringing the mid-tone and the dark into it. We've got a little section up here that's a nice highlight we'll preserve with some white. We've got a highlight right at the top where the light is hitting it. Again, I'm using 5 pressure. Okay, relaxing my pressure a bit to cover the 50% cool gray. And when I look at that, I think, I I really want to get that shine at the top. I want you to know that there's a very brilliant light source here. So here I go. I'm going to try to carve out that white area. And that's where I'm hitting it with really strong pressure. You might hear this break, but okay, so we have a nice little highlight pop there. Okay, bringing it down, blending the black in, just kind of morphing it into the mid-tone. See how we're keeping that streak, that white streak right there. Okay, I want to further identify that white streak for you. And so at this point, I'm going to take my Faber-Castell white pencil, sharpen it, and go over that streak so that it becomes a little crisper. Metallic surfaces, we see a lot of crisp shapes, crisp lines. Sometimes it's a good idea just to move your board around. It's a little easier to do that. Whether you're working on your lap or you're working on an easel, sometimes it's just easier to move your board around. But we're almost done here. One thing I want to caution you about is when you're working with your white pencil, immediately adjacent to the black, be very careful. Because if you drag any amount of that black color in, it's going to take a lot of time trying to get it out of your white area. If we want to turn that into a shinier shine right here, which I always do, more pressure. That's it, more pressure. And you can see how that comes alive. I want it to blend into the neighboring black area, so I'll kind of take my white over that black section, bring it down. Let's finish it off right here with this area, this mid-tone. Stretch it into the black. And there you go. A believable handle on a lovely teapot. Now let's explore another type of metal with similar values and textures. Brass objects are also commonly seen in still life setups. Additionally, we see them as clasps, buckles, household fixtures such as door handles and cabinet knobs, horse bridles, and musical instruments. Rendering brass surfaces is similar to rendering silver surfaces, except that your color palette will change to a warmer one. Pencil choices lean toward the yellow, beige, and warm brown hues. Black is still used to depict the darkest darks, and white is used to blend down colors and establish the highlights. Let me show you what I mean as we color in one of the valves on this trumpet. I've already established the first layer of black. My pressure was 3. And I'm going to make it a little stronger with 3 pressure leading into 4 pressure. I'm not burnishing just yet. I'm just setting the stage. Again, my strokes are overlapping, but this time, because it's a horizontal situation, I am going horizontally, yet still overlapping my strokes. Okay, down here for the second area, doing the same thing. In this case, the midtones are the yellows. There are 2 pencils that we'll be using for the yellows. The first one is yellow ochre, and the second one is goldenrod. So we'll put an initial layer of yellow ochre using 3 pressure, elliptical overlapping strokes in a horizontal fashion across the top of this valve. And I'm only going to do the top of this valve for you. The front portion of the valve is very beautiful, but it would take a little bit more time, and it's going to use the same techniques that we're covering right here. Bringing this mid-tone down. But of course, if we're going to burnish, we need more than just one color. So that's where our other pencil comes in, and that is goldenrod. So goldenrod gets brought over very quickly. Now you'll see that I mistakenly went into the white lining of the highlight right here, and I'll show you how the white pencil will just reverse that, take it right out. That white pencil is so good for getting rid of mistakes, for blending colors together, and just doing whatever you need it to do. Taking my white pencil, very carefully, And don't be surprised if the point kind of pops. It just might, but that's okay. We're going to get it back down to that white line. Okay, there we are. And one thing I want to mention, and I mentioned this before, when you're burnishing black and it's right next to white, be very careful not to drag any of the black into the white area. While it can be done, you can lift some of that black out. It's a little challenging. So now I'm going to burnish that top black section. I'm going to start over here on the left-hand side, slowly, methodically, left to right, tiny little swirls moving horizontally across this valve. Pressure, pressure, but not enough to break the point. Enough to show you, though, that this is an extreme value, an extreme shadow that's brought on by the lighting source. Now, before I do the same thing down here, you'll notice from the photograph that it morphs into sort of a yellowish black around the white highlight. Let's put that in. We're going to put in yellow ochre. And I'm using 3 pressure, going around that white highlight on both sides. I know I'm going to muddy it up a little bit with that black, so I'll get that yellow in there before it becomes messy. Back to burnishing. Here we go. We'll start in the center and I'll move to the right with my black pencil. Small elliptical strokes. 5 pressure, shouting pressure, moving slowly to the right, preserving that thin white rim just above it. Now we're going to capture some of that yellow color, but we're going to be careful. So the way that's handled is I'm going very lightly over it. Now I'm just using 2 pressure, and then when I finish that, I'll use 3 to 4 pressure, again with the yellow pencil. Careful with that highlight. I certainly don't want to get any black inside there. Happy with the middle section. Now I'm taking yellow ochre, dragging color from the middle section, burnishing over this blackishy area, stretching it, grabbing some wax from the center, blurring it, and just going around the highlight. That way you'll see it's not a flat black. And I'd probably develop that a little bit more. I might even bring in a canary yellow or a different yellowish pencil to play with this a little bit more, but in the interest of time, I want you to see how the left side is rendered as well. Bring my black pencil over to the left, burnish, add a little bit of black over that yellow area. It's always a little dicey when you're taking black and you're putting it over a lighter color. You have to be careful, and the way to handle that is to lighten your pressure. Okay, so I've got it in there around that white highlight. And burnish it down with my pencil, my yellow ochre, and stretch it into the black, keeping that highlight, that white highlight, as clean as possible in the process. Okay, so you see as this is coming together that we have a little shine going on. Okay, now taking my yellow pencil, heading up top here, burnishing the top strip between the 2 white lines, 5 pressure, overlapping strokes, moving from right to left. Now we see from the photo that these white strips of highlight, they're not pure white. They're light, but not pure white. So the way we'll manage that is we will lightly cover, I'm going to say 2 pressure with the yellow ochre. Establish some color. Again, I'm trying to be very careful not to pull in black. And then I will burnish over that. Now see, you'll notice that I did have a little boo-boo here with that black, so I'm going to push it back where it belongs. Okay, so we've got that back. Put some yellow right here, lightly. the last thing I'm going to do for this demo, because we're going to keep these highlights white. There's no point in me taking my white pencil and coloring white over white, because there's high risk that somehow I'll pull some of that surrounding color in and ruin it. So let's just leave well enough alone and finish these white strips. This is my Prismacolor white pencil. If it decides to pop the point, we'll grab the Faber-Castell. Either way, we're going to get a nice sharp shine that's not perfectly white, but it still communicates that we've got a shine here, a nice strip. And sometimes if I'm working on this, I might even completely turn my board around so that it's a little easier for me to outline that thin area with my white pencil. If you take a look at my finished sample of the front portion of this trumpet valve, you'll see the reflection from the neighboring valves. These were done with dark brown, terracotta, canary yellow, and cadmium orange hue pencils. So you can see the combination really makes for a well-defined, lustrous brass surface that's believable because of its color, contrasting shapes, and shine. When working with metallic textures, the details found within the reflections and raised pattern of an object itself are important. Details can be intimidating, but remember, these are also nothing more than shapes, values, and colors. I like details. They raise the level of excellence to a higher plane if they're attractive and believably rendered. Embracing detail work communicates that you've taken the time to bring your subject to life. You've spent the hours necessary to create even the smallest feature. Examples of details with respect to metallic surfaces would include the ornate pattern on an antique spoon, or the many keys on a musical instrument, or perhaps the complicated edging of a silver tray. Don't shy away from detail. I really like it, and it's not nearly as intimidating as it seems. In this sample, I've used the same burnishing techniques that we've used so far. I've established the dark grooves with my black, the gray midtones with my 50% cool gray, and the bright highlights with white. Rendering glass is similar to rendering metallic objects. In this artwork right here, you'll see a beautiful glass pitcher, and the way that you know that it's glass is because you see the stems in there. You see a water line, and you see reflections on the handle, the glass itself, the upper lip of it, and the base. Rendering that is very simple. It's just drawing what you see. For the top, you'll be drawing a few highlights, darkening the rim, and adding some midtones. Same for that water line, same for the handle, as well as the base. Now, going to frosted glass on this other artwork, a little more challenging. To create this frosted glass pattern, I needed to draw in the stripes that create that curved diagonal section, and I needed to address each particular stripe. Once I figured out how to do it, it really wasn't that hard, and it involved a lot of blending, a lot of burnishing, keeping strong lines between the patterns, and somehow bringing in the suggestion of the stems behind it. And that was simply burnishing some grays and some greens where the stems would be. So it's really fun doing glass. Clear glass is a little easier than frosted glass, but they can both be done very beautifully. So to wrap up, we've learned how to create the textures involved with metallic objects such as silver and brass. We also observed how important values are when creating strong, contrasting shapes within the objects. Lighting is key, and we see that unusual reflections create drama that our viewers appreciate. The more detail, the better. And lastly, raised or etched patterns within our metallic forms add interest and excellence to even the simplest of compositions. So for your homework, take a picture of something metallic, then bring it to life on paper with the techniques that you learned in this lesson. Coming up next, creating realistic wood grain.